You know that quiet that completely fills a house after someone you deeply love is suddenly just gone? It's a really heavy, suffocating kind of silence. It literally presses down on your chest. You start noticing things you never really paid attention to before, right? The loud, rhythmic ticking of the hallway clock, the dust motes dancing in the empty living room where his favorite armchair just sits there untouched, the quiet hum of the refrigerator in a kitchen that suddenly feels entirely too large. I'm Chelsea, and today I want to walk you through a deeply personal explainer, because what I want to share with you isn't just the reading of a legal will or how an inheritance gets divided. I want to tell you a story about human nature, about blind greed, and about the way the universe sometimes perfectly poetically balances the scales. Because what started as a simple, heartbreaking loss quickly unraveled into literally the most unbelievable, chaotic sequence of events of my entire life.
I wish I could have shown him his grandchildren. Those exact words just escaped my lips on a heavy sigh the very day he passed. See, I got married when I was 25, which was exactly 5 years ago. And at my wedding, surrounded by the warm glow of string lights and soft music, my father and I made a really quiet, special promise to each other on the dance floor. I held his hands and I promised him, I'll let you know first when I get pregnant. But that promise remained agonizingly unfulfilled. And honestly, that's about the only true regret I hold in my heart. Ever since his illness was discovered a year ago, I did absolutely everything I could. I basically lived in my parents' house. I sat for hundreds of hours in those sterile, humming hospital rooms. You know that sharp, stinging smell of bleach and rubbing alcohol, the itchy vinyl of the visitor's chair, and that relentless, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor under the pale fluorescent lights? I remember it all so vividly. I called, I video chatted, I held his hand while he slept. But still, in those quiet, lonely moments, grief kind of whispers to you in the dark. It asks, could I have done more? My mom would gently rub my back and reassure me, but the dull, aching pain of that unfulfilled promise, it just lingered so deeply inside me.
Now, the stark contrast between my constant caretaking and my older sister Portia's absolute apathy, it was heartbreaking. Portia and I used to be okay when we were younger, but things turned incredibly sour and distant when Dad got sick. While I was practically living at the hospital, sleeping in those awful, uncomfortable chairs and eating vending machine food, Portia was just entirely absent. I would call her, literally begging her in tears to just come visit for an afternoon. But she always had this arrogant, dismissive attitude. She literally told me, I live in the city. Those 2 hours are tough. It costs money. Like, really? It was always about the money with her. She even snapped at me once saying, I'm busy, so stop contacting me. She lived a mere 2-hour drive away. But to Portia, sitting beside our dying father wasn't worth the gas money or the toll booth fees. That sheer coldness built this impenetrable wall of tension between us. A wall that would finally completely shatter on the day the lawyer arrived.
So picture the thick, suffocating air of our living room on the day of the will reading. It felt so heavy you could hardly breathe. My mother and I were sitting close together on the couch, still wearing our dark morning clothes, and my mom's hands were shaking so badly her teacup rattled against its saucer. Then Portia just saunters in. She's wearing this pristine designer outfit, flanked by a lawyer named Samuel, a really rigid man in his mid-40s holding a leather briefcase. He pulls out a single piece of crisp white paper. The house and the surrounding land went to Mom, which is natural, but the rest of the inheritance? Well, it consisted of about $100,000 in liquid cash and a rundown, dirty, 65-square-foot storage shed sitting on some rented farmland miles away. Instantly, Portia's eyes lit up with this predatory greed. She triumphantly declares she's taking the $100,000 in cash, leaving me with the dilapidated shack. She literally smirked, crossed her arms, and said, Fine, I'll take the cash, you can have that dirty shed. I was completely stunned by the gross injustice of it. But my mother, who just wanted peace and an end to the conflict, softly squeezed my hand and begged me to just accept it. Portia practically laughed out loud as she signed the legal agreement, taking every single penny of the money. And I just sat there, feeling completely, utterly defeated.
The very next day, I took the rusty, jagged key from Samuel the lawyer and made the 10-minute walk down a quiet, rural dirt road to the farmland. The only sound was the loud crunch of dry gravel beneath my shoes and the wind whipping through the tall grass. The afternoon sun was just beating down on my back. So I get there, jam the key into the padlock, and pull open the creaky wooden door to the shed. Immediately, a thick, choking cloud of dust dances in the beam of sunlight. This blast of stale, suffocating heat, mixed with the smell of dry rot and rust, just hit my face. I coughed a little, stepping into the dim, barren room, and it was completely empty. Well, except for some old, cracked rubber hoses, rusty pruning scissors, and a few broken shovels leaning against the wall. Absolutely nothing valuable. But as I stood there in that stifling heat, a sudden, creeping realization washed over me. I stepped back outside into the breeze, looked really closely at the exterior walls, and then stepped back in, pacing the floorboards. Why did the inside look so much smaller than the outside? I mean, the dimensions simply did not add up. There was undeniably missing space.
My heart started racing in my chest. I walked around to the back of the shed, pushing my way through this dense, scratchy thicket of wild blackberry bushes. The thorns were catching and pulling at my clothes, and right there, barely visible under a thick layer of grime, was a hidden back door seamlessly blended into the wood paneling. I rushed back inside the shed. The stifling heat didn't even bother me anymore. I knew my dad. He was a playful, meticulous man who absolutely loved elaborate puzzles and surprises. I rummaged desperately through the dirty tools, feeling the gritty dirt pack right under my fingernails until my fingers brushed against cold, heavy metal. It was hidden deep inside the hollowed-out handle of an old rusted shovel. 2 heavy iron keys. I grabbed them, ran back out to the hidden door, inserted the first key, and unlocked it with a loud, echoing click. I pulled the door open and stepped into a secret 3-foot-wide compartment. And there, standing silently in the shadows, smelling of old iron and childhood nostalgia, was the massive, heavy steel safe from my dad's old company office. I literally threw my arms around the cold metal and hugged it, tears welling up in my eyes. But let me tell you, when I put the second key in the dial, turned it, and heard that heavy, rusty metallic clunk unlocking the thick vault door, nothing could have prepared me for what was waiting in the dark.
$500,000. I am not exaggerating. Inside that heavy steel safe, resting gently on pristine, aged velvet trays, was my father's secret, lifetime collection of immaculate, incredibly rare pocket watches. The glint of polished gold, silver, and platinum caught the single beam of sunlight filtering through the cracks in the wood. The dials practically shimmered, and if you listened closely, you could hear the faint, ghostly ticking of hundreds of intricate miniature mechanical hearts. I was completely stunned. All the air just left my lungs, my breath literally caught in my throat. I carefully locked the safe back up, ran all the way to my mother's house, and that night, under the strict cover of darkness, we quietly moved the massive safe into our home with my husband's help. We hired a certified public accountant and Samuel the lawyer to professionally appraise every single piece, and the sheer, staggering true value of this hidden collection was confirmed. $500,000. My father hadn't left me a dirty, worthless shed at all. He had purposefully hidden his most prized, valuable legacy just for me.
But, as we all know, explosive secrets are incredibly hard to keep, especially in a family. And it all unraveled over a seemingly insignificant amount, $500. See, because the watch collection was so incredibly valuable, I had to pay a substantial inheritance tax to legally claim it. Following the accountant's strict advice, I sold a few of the watches that I didn't have a strong emotional attachment to, paid the hefty tax bill, and actually had some liquid money left over. To be kind, I sent $500 thank you gift cards to a few close relatives, like our sweet aunt, who had been so incredibly helpful and supportive during my dad's final, painful days in the hospital. It was just a sweet, innocent gesture of gratitude. But that innocent $500 gift card accidentally tipped off the absolute last person on earth who should have ever known. Our aunt randomly ran into Portia at a coffee shop in the city a few days later, and she just casually mentioned my very generous financial windfall.
Fast forward just a few days, I'm sitting quietly in my house reading a book when there's this sudden, aggressive, pounding knock at the front door. It literally rattled the glass panes in their frames. I opened it, and standing right there is Portia. Now, you have to understand, we never visit each other casually, let alone her making a nervous, unannounced 20-minute drive from my mother's house to mine in the middle of the day. I reluctantly let her in and made her some coffee. She didn't even touch it. She just sat on the edge of my couch, practically vibrating with this nervous, aggressive energy. Her eyes were darting frantically around my living room like a hawk looking for prey. And suddenly, the interrogation began. Did you win the lottery? Did your husband get a massive bonus? I know you have money, Chelsea. Just admit it. She was practically hovering over my coffee table, the shrill, piercing cadence of her screams echoing off my walls, demanding to know where the sudden cash for the expensive gift cards had come from.
Under the intense, suffocating pressure of her glaring eyes and relentless screaming, I cracked. I carefully explained the whole story. The hidden compartment in the back of the shed, the shovel handle, the breathtaking watch collection, the incredible true inheritance that was waiting inside that exact shed she had so cruelly mocked and rejected. Portia's face instantly contorted with this ugly mixture of deep jealousy and red-hot rage. She practically climbed over the table, demanding to know exactly where the rest of the watches were right now. And then, I made a fatal mistake. I looked at her entirely exhausted by the screaming, and I said, "The safe is too big for this house. It's at Mom's." The moment those words left my mouth, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees.
Portia's demeanor shifted instantly. The screaming stopped. Her eyes went completely cold and calculating. She abruptly stood up, muttered, "I'm leaving now that I know where the money came from," and literally sprinted out my front door, slamming it behind her. I felt a deep, twisting, sickening unease settle in the pit of my stomach, but I foolishly tried to brush it off.
That evening, the quiet country night descended into absolute terrifying chaos. Around 9 p.m., my exhausted mother turns off the lights and goes to bed. At exactly 9:15 p.m., she is violently jolted awake by harsh, aggressive scraping noises. Metal violently grinding against metal. Someone is actively breaking into her house. Terrified, her heart pounding in her ears, and totally alone in the dark house, she creeps out of bed. At 9:20 p.m., she quietly forces open her bedroom window, climbs out into the biting, freezing night wind in her pajamas, and sprints across the frost-covered grass to the neighbor's house, screaming frantically for help. By 9:30 p.m., the harsh, piercing glare of red and blue police strobes is tearing through the pitch-black countryside, illuminating the entire front porch of my childhood home. My phone suddenly rings, completely shattering the quiet of my own bedroom. It's my mom, absolutely frantic, sobbing uncontrollably. My husband and I drop everything, throw our coats on, and speed down those dark country roads.
When we pulled up, tires screeching on the gravel, we pushed our way through the small, shivering crowd of concerned neighbors. The tension was at its absolute peak. The loud, sharp crackle of police radios cut right through the dead silence of the country road. The blinding, disorienting strobe of the red and blue emergency lights reflected intensely off the dark window panes of the house. My shivering mother, wrapped in a neighbor's heavy blanket, and the rest of the crowd were all standing behind the safety of the police cruisers, collectively holding their breath, frantically pointing toward the dark living room. Through the front window, you could see a single beam of light, a flashlight frantically moving back and forth, illuminating the dust in the dark room. The police drew their weapons, their heavy boots crunching on the porch steps, shouting loud, booming commands to open the door. Who was this flashlight-wielding burglar? I mean, who would be twisted enough to target a grieving widow's home in the absolute dead of night?
Before I reveal exactly what the police found when they violently breached that front door, if this story of justice and karma has you completely hooked, hit that subscribe button right now. We bring you these unbelievable real-life stories, and trust me, you absolutely won't want to miss how this incredible night ends. Subscribe right now. Okay, so the police rushed in, flashlights piercing the dark, and it wasn't a burglar at all. There, lying helplessly on the hardwood floor of the living room, screaming and sobbing in agonizing pain, was my own older sister, Portia. She had callously sneaked into her own grieving mother's house under the cover of darkness, dressed in all black, to literally rob her own family's safe. But in her frantic, blind, greedy rush to grab the watches, when the distant wail of the police siren started echoing outside, she completely panicked. She blindly bumped hard into the heavy, open steel door of the massive, unstable safe, and the entire incredibly heavy iron structure toppled violently over, brutally crushing her leg underneath its massive weight. She was pinned to the floor. Her desperate, unthinkable betrayal was now fully, publicly exposed to the armed police officers, the horrified neighbors on the lawn, and her own devastated family.
The ultimate, undeniable power of karma was swift and absolute. The police immediately called Portia's husband, who is a wealthy IT CEO. But when he rushed to the emergency room where Portia lay in a hospital bed with a severely fractured leg, the entire ugly truth came spilling out under questioning. Portia had a massive, suffocating secret mountain of credit card debt. She had already completely blown her entire $100,000 cash inheritance in just weeks on superficial designer brand names, expensive bags, and luxury shoes just to furiously hide her reckless spending habits from her husband. That's exactly why she was so insanely desperate to steal from the safe. Standing right there in the sterile hospital room, looking at the police report, her husband was absolutely disgusted by the late-night break-in, the unfathomable greed, and the years of lies. Right there, beside her hospital bed, he coldly informed her he was filing for divorce. She lost absolutely everything she valued. Meanwhile, my life took a quiet, beautiful turn. My husband and I decided to officially move back into my childhood home to take care of my mother so she wouldn't be alone. And as we packed our boxes, we brought with us the most joyful news imaginable.
I found out I was pregnant. That beautiful, tearful promise I made to my father on the dance floor at my wedding 5 years ago, it was finally, miraculously coming true. When I say I'm looking forward to giving birth to a healthy baby, I know deep in my heart that my father somehow orchestrated all of this from wherever he is now. He smartly protected his life's legacy, he flawlessly exposed the ugly greed that was hiding in our family, and he made absolutely sure his grandchild would be raised in a childhood home filled with genuine love, warmth, and security rather than selfishness. Thank you so much for letting me share my deeply personal explainer with you today. If this emotional journey of karma, family, and justice touched your heart, please hit that warm subscribe button and join our incredible community. Your continued support really means the world to me, and it ensures we can keep sharing these powerful, true stories with you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and please remember to hold the ones you love very, very closely today.